Bethesda has always been a one-stop shop for some of the most memorable action RPGs and, overpromising.
16 times the detail.
Laughing now.
However, the beginning era of a hit series began when ZeniMax, parent company of Bethesda, purchased a little-known underdog named Arkane Studios. They became champions of the immersive sim genre with their excellent entry, Dishonored. It was the first major example of game philosophy that truly embraced the idea of player freedom, not that weak-ass Todd Howard
Sometimes it doesn't just work.
Bro, get off the stage. Providing multiple approaches to situations and incorporating elements of multiple genres, stealth, first-person shooters, and platformers, to name a few. However, soon after the launch of a successful sequel, Arkane realized that they want to be proud of more than just one magic trick, moving on from making carbon copies of Dishonored, hoping for the same success. So, alongside Dishonored 2, they decided to have their Austin division explore a different avenue of the genre. But that's a lie, because it's not really a horror game. More on that later. Prey is a series with quite the history, so to truly understand why this game was the beginning of the end for Arkane, we must first learn about its crude development cycle. It all started back in 2006 with the original game named Prey, developed by Human Head Studios.
The Oklahoma area. Our affiliate in Oklahoma City is telling us that the state police, get this, are reporting mysterious lights all over the area.
Prey was a sci-fi first-person shooter with a development history spanning over about a decade, with its evolution flipping between multiple iterations of game design and technology duct-taped together to finally release. This is important because exactly 3 years after its release to financial success, the rights to the franchise were acquired by Bethesda after the sequel, Prey 2, faced constant development issues. However, it was only in 2013 that rumors spread around that Prey 2 had been moved from Human Head to their golden child, Arkane, only for Bethesda to have development reset entirely, scrapping every single crumb of Human Head's work on Prey 2. And even then, Bethesda wasn't done swinging their inflated cock around and came back to cancel the project entirely, only to then reboot the game again in favor of a Prey 1 reboot rather than a sequel. You know, I'm starting to wonder if Bethesda has some serious commitment issues. It was only until E3 that same year where Bethesda presented the reboot, with development being led by Dishonored's very talented homie, Cole Antonio, with the added promise that this new Prey was not a true sequel, but a reimagining of the IP. Now, this is where it gets a little wacky, because Bethesda promised that this new title had absolutely no correlation from the cancelled game outside of fighting against aliens, which turned out to be true when debunked by none other than our beloved website Kotaku, who discovered design documents which stated it was built to be a spiritual sequel to System Shock rather than Prey 1. Even with all the trouble they went through to distance themselves from the original Prey, Daddy Bethesda basically forced them to keep the title Prey, which Arkane didn't take too kindly to, leaving Cole Antonio feeling like he betrayed fans who thought that they were continuing the Prey series, while simultaneously insulting the original developers. He specifically mentioned it was a sales mistake that would turn away fans from the original game and fail to attract new ones. Now, I want you to remember that, because it's a key piece for the backstory behind this horrific abomination. For now, I introduce you to the failure that is Prey.
Good morning, Morgan. Today is Monday, March 15th, 2032.
The year is 2032. Your name is Morgan Yu, the Vice President and Director of Research of TranStar Industries, a high-tech and very nerdy mega corporation. Waking up in a futuristic apartment that seems to be in San Francisco to the smell of bagels and Starbucks coffee, you can see your feet right off the bat, so we can add 100 points to the Metacritic score. After spending 15 minutes playing with the Bethesda physics in the apartment, we venture off to start our first day on the job our brother Alex recruited us for. What comes next has to be the most creative way to introduce a player to a video game. As you make your way to the TranStar headquarters, you convene with your brother, who explains that you are partaking in some tests concerning neuromods.
I know the test might seem a little unconventional, but it's a you family tradition.
Neuromods being the Tesla brain chip of this universe, changing your brain's structure based on a template scanned from someone else with the relevant skills you wish to acquire. With the impression that it's family tradition, these tests are essentially the tutorial, a neat way to introduce basic gameplay systems. Your last test involves a trolley problem and even a Rorschach test. Their little game of prop hunt goes horribly wrong, and some kind of alien attacks one of the researchers, and you're left gassed in the testing chambers, only to wake back up the same morning you just experienced. Deja vu! Ah shit! Quick! Cue random spooky noise .mp3. Of course, what happened was very real. It was not a simulation. One quick thing I do want to praise about this game already is the glass physics. You can fragment every section of the glass, which is always cool, while also being able to pick up almost every single object in the game. You're drowned in the ambience right off the bat, with a chilling silence of only the stillness of the space station filling your ears. Absolutely no one is around. Your horrific fight to find answers has begun, but it's also where glaring problems with the game start to pop their ugly, ugly heads, kinda like a whack-a-mole.
Good. You're in the simulation lab. Now get to the exit. I'll keep in contact.
Well, wait a minute, then who is that? That's January, our little babysitter. January is a operator robot who apparently was modified by Morgan to remind himself everything he forgot after recovering from the frequent neuromod extractions. Throughout the game, January is your main source of information when it comes to Morgan and various techs around the space station itself. Arkane clearly realized that not everything can be locked to notepad terminals. Supposedly, the robot knows everything from Morgan's behaviors and how he would behave. You're kinda expected to suspend disbelief hard enough to just believe that everyone you meet knows about Morgan's every thought and habit, like his obsession with controllers. The narrative of Prey is kinda like reaching under a couch for something you dropped under it. You force your hand in, hoping to grab something, only to pull your hand out covered in dirt and dust. If you're not getting a rare interaction with another human, the story beats are described to you by someone else, or are peppered around Fallout style on the dozens of terminals and voice recordings, which can work well. I don't want to downplay that, especially in the case of Dark Souls item descriptions, but not when there's apparently this holy grail buried somewhere within the game. Let me set the stage. Prey is set on an alternative timeline where John F. Kennedy wasn't assassinated, therefore accelerating the space race, resulting in humankind taking an orbit around Earth Moon L2, whatever the fuck that means. It's something I'm gonna call the Ligma Point. The Soviet Union are the first to encounter a species of EU social aliens called the Typhon aboard one of their satellites. From there, they work with the United States to fight off and capture them. Together, they build a space station codenamed Kletka to be used as a prison for the Typhon. Quickly after a research incident on the Soviet space station occurs, where a group of scientists lose their lives to the Typhon, the American government rectifies this, shuttering Project Axiom, leaving the captive Typhon alive. Here is where TranStar comes in. They scoop up the Soviet space station, refitting it to the Talos one we now know, continuing research into the Typhon and advancements in neuroscience. Now, where does this information come from, you might ask? Whoa. Slow down there, Buster. Those videos that I showed there are a series of videos uploaded by Bethesda, which aren't present in the game whatsoever, by the way. So try to remember that when you listen to what I have to say in the next part. One of the terminals in the game? Possibly. Maybe some terrible Golem game lore book? I couldn't tell you because I read it on the wiki page. Let's say it is hidden somewhere on some random Dell computer on the station. I don't ever remember reading anything of actual value about the world of Prey on those. More often than not, it was pages of research on specific tools or Discord DMs.
Wow, that's a lot of words.
Too bad I'm not reading them.
That or random relationship problems the researchers on this mega nerd station are having. So I eventually just started skipping them. I mean, sure, 100% I wanted to learn about the world itself, not about these nerds playing Dungeons and Dragons. And look, I love D&D. Divinity 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. But it's hard to care about random characters in the video game where 90% of the passengers on this station aren't alive. This style of writing works for something like Fallout because there are actual people to talk to along the terminals. The ghouls, for example, are especially interesting because they have first-hand experience with living through Skid Row after the nukes fell. In Prey, you as the player are a third wheel almost the entire time. What makes it worse is that Morgan Yu does not speak, which isn't a special case considering in Dishonored 1, Corvo did not speak, but he later got a voice in Dishonored 2. But the problem arises when this character, Morgan, is merely a vessel for the player to control, a very one-dimensional protagonist. He is extremely reliant on what little NPCs there are and the environment to tell the story for you. You're curious about what went down in that room over there? Well, the terminal's over there, dumbass! Spoilers incoming, so beware. We explore through this space station wondering, who is Morgan Yu? What happened to the other passengers? How did the Typhon even break containment? How did the megastation Talos 1 come to be? Because Morgan has no idea either, and I had to read a wiki page earlier to find out. Morgan's rapid use and removal of neuromods has afflicted him with the stupid. Ah, wait, that's not quite right. I'm sorry. Amnesia. The dark descent into these nuts. A side effect caused by forcefully removing these brain mods. But when you beat the game, spoiler warning again, Arkane has the balls to tell you to your face that the plot of the game we just played is a bunch of baloney. You are a special Typhon alien Alex made by running these simulations reconstructed with Morgan's memories. According to him, civilization had already been making use of the Typhon power. So what, Morgan is just presumed dead, even though many of the game's endings involve Morgan surviving? To dump this on your head all of a sudden is kind of stupid because other than listening to the various voice recordings, there is a lot of conflicting information from your operator and Alex. So how much should you really have to explore the game for it to share its backstory with you? These multiple endings don't really change much because the only difference is the after credits scene. It's framed like a high scoreboard at the end of a level. You know, the whole Groundhog Day thing, you know, that's apparently the entire game. Like, what exactly are we supposed to feel from this?
It all comes down to the choices it made.
There's no question that every test, every juncture, it showed little to no identification with the crew or their suffering.
I mean, yeah, I don't really know them, so... Dishonored set pieces used creative ways to express the mood in storytelling. In contrast, Prey has this harsh video gamey feel to it that commits to no genre it implements, staying completely open-ended. Also, I'm curious if anyone noticed the immersion-breaking audio the voice acting has. It's like they added a few decibels of bass to all the in-person voices.
I'm sure you could make better use of it.
I was using your workstation.
I found the right materials for the glue gun as well. Was able to make...
Now that is an excellent transition to talk about the world. Talos 1 is both very interesting and very boring at the same time. Lean and mean environments with exceptional lighting. Prey is an immersive sim that grandfathers everything that makes the genre shine with a light horror coat of paint over it. Pretty visuals and the best of all, atmosphere. Each and every room on the station has a clear and functional purpose, so at least in the beginning, it's easy to get lost in its symmetrical spaces. It reminds me a lot of liminal spaces everyone was obsessed with not too long ago. There is something so dreadful about being a lone survivor on a ship as massive as this one, unknown to what could be creeping around the corner. Is it a mimic, or merely your mind playing tricks on you? Nope, it's random spooky. If we're going to talk about the spooks, I'll say that Prey is about as scary as Five Nights at Freddy's. Boring until the very unintentional jump scare. I won't lie, the first few hours of the game, it had my jimmies rustling a little bit. Yet, the fascination of exploring its satisfying hallways degrades quickly the moment backtracking is involved. Arkane kinda blows their load a little early when it comes to the various spaces. A lot of the cool, weird ideas happen in the first half of the game, like this elevator ride. Hey, yo, what the? These unique interactions are few and far in between. The space exploration was a nice touch. I just wish there was more to it than just the normal game, but floating around now. The only other memorable moment is the introduction of the roaming mini-boss, the Nightmare. Notice that I said introduction, not the boss himself. They sort of ran with the idea of Mr. X from Resident Evil 2, but made it bad. Mr. X is a roaming enemy that encourages you to not stick in one area too long. It rewards your memory of the spaces. The same can be said with the Xenomorph from Alien Isolation. Whereas the Nightmare is a random grass Pokemon encounter. If he's still alive in your playthrough, whenever you enter an area, there is a chance that the Nightmare will spawn in that area to hunt you down. You either evade him or kill him. This guy's existence helps prove to me that Arkane were just adding in things they thought were cool rather than something that's supposed to fit. The enemies are another glaring issue in this game. Considering the game this is, they're supposed to be like, pretty strong selling point to play this game. But instead, they are extremely powerful, telepathic, magic power wielding, teleporting super alien, black blobs, or shapes, or whatever that is. And being this towering species above us, all they could do to evolve was turn into black Nickelodeon slime. Look at this, for example. This is the big bad Nightmare I was just talking about. And this is a normal phantom enemy. Every enemy type has no identity, no personality, no purpose. You serve zero purpose in terms of design. They have one gameplay gimmick assigned to them, and that's all they amount to. The best enemy in this game had to be the paranormal activity blob. The one that moves stuff around because he's invisible. They actually scared the fuck out of me a couple times. But regardless, let's move on to game. Arkane supposedly had the goal of giving Prey something called emergent gameplay, which refers to complex situations in various games from video games, board games, tabletop, and etc., but reduced down to relatively simple mechanics. Prey is a bit confusing in this regard. The gameplay is the banana peel that makes it slip and fall flat onto its face. The more I played this game, the less I understood who exactly it was made for. This isn't a stealth game, or is it specifically a survival horror based game, or is it just an immersive sim? I ordered up a chicken! Why is there a fish fillet in my bag? Prey is a jack of all genres, but a master of nothing. Kind of like me, which doesn't help when attempting to market this game to anyone besides Dishonored fans. But let's take a step back a bit. In Arkane's previous titles, the stealth, platforming, and combat had a purpose and goal in mind. There were many ways to approach these levels and situations, whether you were bribing guards, silently murdering them all, or simply sneaking past them. On top of that, you were given dozens of tools and meticulously crafted spaces to play with. This made you feel pretty badass, or like a boss, whenever you linked all of these mechanics together. There's a reason those creative kill montages existed. Corvo actually felt good to play with, while Morgan just doesn't. Prey feels like a watered-down version of Dishonored. It could have had something to do with the switch from their own Void engine into Far Cry's Cry engine. The weird concoction of the Resident Evil style survival horror, in quotes, and inventory management mixed with futuristic Fallout gunplay. Rather than copy-pasting styles from Dishonored, they opted to look back to one of their fantasy action RPGs, Arx Fatalis. Providing more role-playing style improvement systems, with many ideas and designs cherry-picked from the game itself. The lead designer, Ricardo, considered Talos 1 to be like a open world, which both me and Colantonio seems to disagree with. But if you've been listening, you'll be wondering, wait a minute. Prey was a reboot of Prey 1, a spiritual sequel to System Shock, while also having a reinterpretation of a mega dungeon from their first game? Why? Who did this? What were they thinking? They even considered procedural generation, which, thank the Lord, that didn't happen in the main game. It was saved for their Moon Crash DLC. But this is the crux of the problem. Their team was already split in two, but to compensate for that, clearly their ambition didn't lower. Too many ideas and mechanics in the Prey square peg were slammed into the round hole. The list of tools and weapons were fine, but are purposely weak. I will admit that the glue gun was mechanically and creatively unique. Enemies are usually kicking your ass, giving you swirlies in between classes, with the occasional alien getting blasted away for pretending to be cool. There are only two extremes to this game. There is no middle ground. So the saving grace was definitely the glue gun and the shotgun. Every other weapon you require is supremely inefficient for how much ammo it takes to slay certain enemies. They seem to try to persuade you to conserve your resources and pick your battles, but this immediately fails when you re-enter an area you were previously in without any extra resources to fight this new set of enemies. Now you would think, brother, it's an Arkane game, just stealth. Oh, let me tell you, Prey has stealth simply because it had to. Colantonio even noted that stealth was not the focus in this game, so why is it there? There's no way you're successfully stealthing through a section because you'll backtrack to there again. And when you do, you bet your sweet bippy that a new set of enemies are waiting for you. There's nothing wrong with refreshing areas with a new set of enemies, but unfortunately, these enemies are only a means to remind you that this is a video game. Sooner than later, killing the fifth phantom instant transmissioning at you is not worth how much resources it consumes slapping them around. The level design simply isn't good enough to justify with how extremely linear the station ultimately is. Well, actually, there are 3 ways to enter that room. Alright, I'll throw you a bone. Let's make our own little simulation about this. A doorway you need to go through requires a certain skill called leverage, which allows you to lift various large objects that block loot throughout the game. But let's say you decided to not get those skills and got the ones that let you upgrade weapons instead. So you don't have the leverage level 2 that you need to get past this point. Okay, that's -1 path. The second entrance is beyond a locked door you could also enter by hacking your way. That also requires a fucking skill. These supposed branching paths are locked off behind skills, which is not really player freedom if you're forced to take these skills just to get to places. These set pieces are well crafted, but that's about it. These levels are made to explore, not necessarily to be utilized in a sandbox. Kind of feels like that artificial freedom that I mentioned in the beginning. To prod on another one of the weapons, I feel like it's a sick joke by Arkane, but you eventually get this toy crossbow that's supposed to be a way to distract enemies, and oh man, am I glad that it works flawlessly.
Who's there? Must have been the wind. Stop right there!
Look, I love whacking dudes over the head with a crowbar just as much as the next guy. However, swinging a wrench around that feels like a wet water noodle is just a little silly. Truly, my interest for Prey was genuinely there. It's just hard to get invested in a setting that's hard to understand what it's trying to convey. The world and exploration was the only thing carrying this game on its back, and its spindly little baby arms still barely managed to do even that. I don't want to influence the habit of being a video game crybaby, but there should be a tipping point. -110 Metacritic points. To finally wrap this up in a little bow, let's finally revisit the beginning of the end. Earlier, I mentioned that Prey was a failure, and no, I'm not saying that just for clickbait. I named Bethesda for that, okay? We have integrity on this channel. The ROI for Prey and Dishonored 2 did not quite reach the numbers that Arkane had hoped, with the first Dishonored selling 3 million copies on PC alone, and the sequel trailing just shy behind its prequel at 2.5 million in total. Prey sold a hot and healthy whopping 1.5 million across every platform. This game was not marketed well at all, and it reigned true with how commercially unsuccessful it was. A niche game made for a niche audience with a horrible marketing plan. Leadership did not like these results, so what do you think they thought to do? Oh man, well, God, our games aren't selling too well. We need something that can appeal to the widest audience. Oh fuck it, yeah, we can just make the modern gaming. Shortly after Prey's release, Arkane showed interest in changing their approach for game releases. To paraphrase a little bit of what the lead director said in that interview, more online sharing or multiplayer stuff. We might totally do that. As far as pure immersive sims like Dishonored go, I don't know if we're going to continue to make carbon copies. Prey's flop initiated the downward spiral of Arkane's desperate race for financial success. A studio renowned for making single-player focused titles forced into making everyone's favorite genre, live service. It doesn't help that ZeniMax had a pretty red-eyed boner for its subsidiaries to get Papa some of that microtransaction monopoly. Cole Antonio, one of the two brilliant minds behind their only major success, Dishonored, departed from Arkane only 1 month after Prey released. Part of the reason being creative anxiety around delivering AAA quality games where it felt more like a product rather than a game. It must be one of the reasons why Prey and Deathloop had multiplayer. I could wager it was merely testing the waters at that point. With only Harvey Smith left of the two creatives that saved Arkane back in 2009, the floodgates of pleasant mediocrity spread far and wide. The marketing may have convinced you that they wanted to make this game, but as we know, they never did. And the only thing left waiting for us at the end of the tunnel was something so horrific, so ugly. A game worse than we could have possibly imagined.
What an easy concept! A fucking zombie game only with vampires instead of zombies. How do you screw that up?
Continuing Arkane's legacy of carefully crafted worlds and immersive sims, Redfall brings the studio's signature gameplay to this story-driven action shooter. So I want to be really clear right off the top, that is a total fucking lie.
If I think about a team's execution on a game, we had a creative vision, and did we realize that vision through the game that we created?
In a weird, almost cynical way, Prey's failure was the fire that stoked the flame at Arkane, horrifically burning down every single bit of passion they had left, with Redfall leaving roughly 30% of Austin's division staff who worked on Prey staying at Arkane. Does the fault truly lie with Arkane, who only wanted to see the fruit of their efforts, or were there some suits at ZeniMax and Bethesda desperately clawed and demanded to be the next Borderlands? Who knows? All we know for sure is that the Arkane we knew no longer exists. Man, the future of Dishonored sure looks bleak. But let this be a lesson for any leadership who wishes to keep their ships afloat to stick to what your teams are good at. But we all know they'll do absolutely anything to get some of that wipe my ass money. Developers at Arkane are were creative visionaries who wished to make something that they and we could be proud of, not walking money printers. It turns out they were the prey all along. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna go become a part-time degenerate in Cyberpunk. Take care, everyone, and subscribe.